But when you join after me, you steal host, and so now
Ah,
you have to click.
awesome.
This
I
is
hit
why we should
record.
use our own accounts unless we're running meetings.
Here's our it's recording.
Okay, cool. All right. So, welcome to the Chaos Data Science Working Group meeting for November 18th. Like with all of our meetings, it is under the Chaos Code of Conduct. So, please keep that in mind and be kind to each other. The question of the day is, what's something you wish you knew more about? For me, it's foreign languages. I wish I spoke something other than English. I dabble in a few, but not enough to actually speak any of them. Um,
Yeah.
DevOps slash
I,
infra. Yeah, that's a good one.
yep. I don't like how you've been a citizen of two countries without learning a new language.
I know. Although the languages are still pretty different. I've been here 11 years. I still run across things that my partner says where I'm like, "What? Is that an actual word?" And if so, I don't know what that means. Funny enough. All right. So let's go ahead and get started. So we try to do a blog post out of this working group about every, I don't know, 3, 4 times a year. So it's been about 4 months since the last one. So here's what we have. We have some stuff about the practitioner guides. We have some stuff about the research. So thank you, Ernest and Sal, for writing this section on the Foundation Stats project. I added a little bit about some of the presentations we've done on the relicensing and forks, and then a little blurb about joining us. So is there, I know we still just need to confirm that I've linked to the right issue here for the foundation stats stuff and that there's nothing else we want to add to that. So I'll check with Sal. She's recording a podcast right now, so she can't come. Is there anything else we need to add to this blog post? Any other updates? Okay, cool. I'll go ahead. I'm gonna try to get it posted tomorrow or Thursday, so that we can get it in this week ahead of the U.S. Thanksgiving holiday next week. If you think of anything, today, let me know or just go ahead and add it to the blog post. Okay, next up on the agenda, we have Callie who went to JupyterCon. I'm really interested to hear how it went. Do you want me to stop sharing? Do you have anything you want to share?
I don't have anything I want to share.
Okay.
Um, I actually would actually have to stop the recording for a little
Okay.
bit.
Yep.
There's some stuff that's like very interesting about this that I don't want to say on any type
All
of
right.
thing that's going to get
All
posted
right.
on
I'm
YouTube and put into an AI bot.
I'm gonna
Uh,
put it I'm gonna pause
Okay.
it myself out when I did that.
Okay. I just resumed
Sorry.
the recording. That's all right. Perfect. Um, Michael, do you want me to stop sharing so that you can share, or do you want me to click on the
I don't
link?
have anything in particular to share. I just kind
Okay.
of have updates. I guess I'll very briefly mention what I'm talking about because some of the people are here that weren't at the last meeting, which is where I announced this. So Fedora has a lot of data, including data about user activities, and it's generally locked up in a system that is the messaging bus for Fedora. It's how application A talks to application B. So if you make a git commit in one of our projects, right, like it sends a message that says user so and so made a commit to this project, and some other system picks up that message and like compiles the code and sends a message to all the other systems saying, okay, the code's compiled, right? It's just the general messaging bus. So it's not intended necessarily to capture user activity, but it is a great source of it, and we have it going all the way back to like 2012. We have the history on this thing.
Yeah. It's prehistoric by GitHub standards almost.
Yeah, yeah. And it's all locked up in a like almost 2 terabyte Postgres database, and you can't really query it because like our infra is barely able to handle the load that we have. But those people are making database backup exports available, and I've started poking around. Long story short, the Fedora community has had an interest in trying to analyze itself and improve itself with data for a long time. And the tooling was never really where it needed to be. Robert, who's on this call, created some tooling for his own purposes, but it still kind of required you to have a huge amount of space and bandwidth and time and all this kind of stuff. So it wasn't super accessible. And I am not a data person by profession. I'm like a SRE, enterprise architect. But I thought, how hard could it be? So I nominated myself to go, and I've done like ETL in the very ancient past of my career. So I nominated myself to go, like, get my hands on this data, get it into one of these data lakes that I've been hearing about, particularly with Apache Iceberg. And so I picked Polaris as the catalog provider and set up a Polaris and populated it with some data. And that was about a month ago. I launched the website that's linked here to provide documentation and basically launching this thing inside of Fedora infrastructure proper is like 1,000 times harder than just going and launching like a VPS that I did. So I'm running this myself. I'm slowly updating all the documentation in here. There is, if you go, there is like a getting started with Iceberg and Jupyter. Um, so I guess that's kind of the intro portion of this. Like, what is this? I intended this to be, both for, we have a community of people interested in doing data analysis, data science for Fedora communities within Fedora, but also, communities like CHAOSS and basically anybody who's interested in this stuff. So this has actually somewhat, so right now I have that data set that I was telling you about, that message bus, we call it data nommer. It's this thing that like consumes every message on the bus and writes it to Postgres. And so that's how we have this historical archive of that bus. And so if you click on data sets, you can see what the data nommer data set is. The getting started link does have like a Jupyter notebook to connect you and perform some queries against this data set. I only have 1 month of data in here. That was kind of like the initial POC. Like, let's see, how all the technical details of like, how compressed is too compressed for the Parquet, and like understanding the server load of running the catalog and all that kind of stuff. So I intended to stop there for a few days. I've been stopped there for a few weeks now because very quickly the conversation has shifted. There's two reasons. One is that the conversation has shifted towards privacy. And basically all this data has been made available by Fedora since like 2012. But if you click on the FAQ at the top, the FAQ, most of my FAQ right now is talking about data privacy concerns because the Fedora data privacy policy that's published is vague in some areas and like not explicit in others. And so some people were surprised that, wait, Fedora has all this data about me and like they're publishing all of this like user activity stuff, right? And as far as we know, the data sets that I've published don't have any IP addresses, but also like there are like 28,000 or 29,000 different topics, like different schemas of message in here. So, right, try to do a comprehensive review of 29,000 topics. Basically, I'd have to dump the whole database to text and start doing like some regex stuff. So that hasn't happened yet, which I plan to do, but hasn't happened yet. But it's really exposed a lot of concerns around what data is Fedora making available, and there's some like vagueness. Like you can just with curl, you can just go download a copy of the database. Like there's no agree to a license or anything like that beforehand. So there, like what is the default license in many different, geographies when a bit of data is published and like made explicitly available, but without any statement of under what license, right? Like, so what can you do with this data? And the questions are like, am I Fedora? Is this Fedora doing this stuff with this data, or is it somebody else? So I've got a long list of questions out to Fedora's legal team, and they've not so they've responded basically to like acknowledge that they received the questions, but I've gotten essentially no guidance since then in the last couple of weeks. So presumably this is not easy to answer. The reason I thought it would be okay to go ahead and do this is all of the Fedora leaders have almost all been here for, like many, many, many years. They go back to before these privacy policies were put in place, and they are all quite confident that, this has undergone extensive legal review. It's agreed that, like, yeah, all of this stuff is GDPR compliant, like, don't worry. But when you look at, random bits of text from the GDPR and such, like, I'm kind of like, I don't know how this is possible. So I don't know, for example, what I've found is that GDPR allows it has some recognition of public data sources, but it's generally in the context of like government stuff. So like, the government can make public the data set of like who owns which property, right? It doesn't really, as far as I've discovered yet, like explicitly recognize something like open data community, or what it means, like, are you even legally allowed to agree to something that says like we're going to publish all of your data, all of your personal activity, including like, essentially PII under any other context. And of course, like once it's published, right, GDPR, a lot of GDPR leans on like the ability to request deletion. Well, if it's been published, like if the moment you make a Git commit, that fact is published, and anybody in the world can obtain that fact and retain it, right? There's no, like, we're not a GDPR data processor, like Atlas isn't a data processor. So anyway, those are all the stuff that we're working through, trying to figure out where the law stands. Do we need to change anything about what Fedora is doing? Is something like Atlas even like legal, according to who you ask, etc. So for the time being, I've not been adding more data. My initial plan was to like go ahead and get all the historical stuff in here back to 2012. Let CHAOSS and others have at it. I've been holding off to some extent on that. Well, I'm kind of waiting for this legal stuff to happen. Also, FYI, so this is running, if you were to store all of this data in AWS S3, it would be dramatically cost prohibitive. The only reason I can afford to run, a large data store as a public resource is because other S3 compatible providers, such as Cloudflare, are dramatically cheaper, like 1,000x.
Right. I thought you said though that was only 2 terabytes.
Yeah. Well, if you're hosting 2 terabytes at AWS on your personal account, right, plus all of the data, like the bandwidth that random people are going to be pulling from. Yeah, it gets very expensive very quickly. And so, FYI, there's a technical component to why there's not more data out here, which is that Polaris. So I needed to use not AWS S3 for 2 reasons. One was the cost as a personal project; it's just not feasible. But 2, if we're going to deploy this at Fedora, we need to use also not AWS S3. They're using OpenShift. OpenShift has like S3 compatible storage layers, but it's not S3, right? And almost every infra stack has some S3 compatible storage, Dell, etc. And Polaris just landed the code changes to support non-AWS S3 like a month ago. Like as I've been working on this, it's like I encounter a bug or a shortcoming and I go out and I try to research it, and it's like, oh, they landed the commit for that yesterday, right? So like I'm like literally at the very tip of the spear there as these things are happening. So I'm running like a custom compiled version of this stuff on the server, and the roadblock I've encountered now is that so I set this thing up, I got it working. I tried it in Jupyter, and I was like, yay, it works. All good, right? So I went forward and launched this thing and made it public. And then I was like, okay, so now for Spark or Trino or any of these other things. And none of those applications support the non-AWS S3 model yet. I'm running into roadblocks where like I can't optimize the data store. I can't prune old data, that kind of thing. I can't do a lot of the typical like maintenance stuff that you would do because like Spark doesn't, like Spark's support is work in progress. Trina support is work in progress. Even like the official Iceberg projects support is partially like work in progress. So, so I am now an Apache developer. I'm
Well, what about I mean, we should talk about this too, and what maybe Red Hat could host, because we have other databases, and two
yeah,
terabytes is not too large to work with Postgres.
right. No, there are other ways to launch this.
Yeah.
What I had, a part of what I had hoped to, like a part of what I had in mind as kind of basically my MVP is that there, how do I put this? I wanted, so with this operating model requires almost no CPU, almost no RAM, right? Almost no compute. It's almost like all the work is happening over like S3 storage, like just generic bandwidth, and like your personal query engine, whatever you want to bring to it. And I wanted to bring that model to this data. So for example, we have people in the community that are like, they want to use like R, and they want to use like some other things that like to me are very esoteric, right? And the whole idea behind this like open data lake concept, like iceberg tables, is that it's generic. There are libraries that can be dropped into basically any query engine, and in theory, anything can just, you can point whatever you want at this and it will work. So it was the combination of like being extremely cost effective and extremely flexible in terms of what technology you want to bring. So there are other ways to do this. There are even, Iceberg isn't the only technology in this space. There's quite a few others, Hootie and so forth, Delta Lake. Iceberg seems to be the emerging standard, so that's why I decided to go that direction. But you're right. If the only goal was to get this data out there, there are other ways to do that. Like I could just ingest, I'm already ingesting that database backup from Fedora in order to convert it to Parquet, in order to put it into the Iceberg, right? So like I could just give everybody access to my Postgres database or whatever else. But that's all, maybe I can't let go of my infra. Like I've been like a SRE, right? Like things have to scale massively. Yeah. So, I can only scale so far on a VPS with that sort of data model.
Well, it would be, it would be one thing if all of that worked out of the box, but if you're discovering that you have to actually solve, infrastructure and software problems before you even get to the metrics analysis, then it sounds like a different route might be a good idea.
Yeah, and I'm on the fence about that. It's like all I wanted was some data, but first I had to like make the software for everybody, like provide the upstream commits to make it work for everybody, and then I can have it, which is kind of Fedora's way of doing things. But frankly, I'm like still very new to the data space. Like, I'm still learning my way around some of these tools, and especially like the code projects around it. So it's hard for me to estimate, is this a little hurdle? Is this a huge hurdle, right? Like, will this work in a week? Is this like 6 months worth of work? So I'm kind of trying to get my hands around it just to figure out, I want to be able to specify, here are the exact issues, right? Here's the exact reason why you can't access this thing with Spark yet or whatever, right? And just at least troubleshoot it down to that. And then I can like call it done and move on to, like I'll have a link to like, here's the GitHub issue for Spark, right? Like when that's fixed, I'll add more data kind of thing, and move on from there. So, so I get this, to kind of wrap my agenda slot here. There's a news section of the website. I haven't put this into there yet, but it is, it's got an RSS feed if you want to follow along. I am interested in, if anybody has any resources to kind of chase some of the privacy stuff. Presumably Red Hat Legal is doing that, but I would love to, get my head around how like, is what Fedora is doing essentially considered like blatantly illegal, or are there frameworks around like open data that includes user activity, any references or different communities or anything anybody can provide. I also have to selfishly put out there that like I'm looking for work, so if anybody has anything for an SRE / like very, very junior data person, I would appreciate that as well. But I'll wrap it up there unless anybody has questions. I haven't been looking at the chat.
Okay, that was awesome, but we don't have time for questions
Okay.
because we got a couple more quick items on the agenda. But thank you so much. This is super interesting, and the challenges you're facing are, I think something we all need to think about. Okay, so we've got some project updates. I see Ernest on the call. Do you want to talk about the Foundation Stats project?
I will be meeting with Sal on Thursday, but I know that we're making some progress with the Apache metadata, which was a blocker initially, but the quantity of progress we made, I also don't have the information yet. But I know that we've made some progress with that. So hopefully by Thursday, I will have that, then we'll take the next step.
Awesome. Thank you so much. The relicensing and forks project, there's no real update there. I've been busy with other things, and I'm trying to decide how much more I really want to do on that project, or whether I should be focused on something else. So I'm just kind of spending some time thinking about that. We don't have any other project updates, do we? Okay. Practitioner guides. So the practitioner guides are all published out of this working group. We do videos for each of the guides. There's a little backlog in getting the videos uploaded, but we finally got all the videos for all the published practitioner guides up on the YouTube playlist. So I did a PR earlier today, which has been merged, which just adds the video links to the practitioner guide. So these are short, anywhere from like 3 to 8 or 9 minutes, kind of summarizing the practitioner guide for people who prefer that video format. So we have that done. We have a few things on the agenda for upcoming meetings. Metric ideas from Josh, rethinking the archive project, and the one that Adrian just moved because we didn't have time for it today, about publishing and distributing reports, which I think are all really interesting. Are any of these things that we want to do in our next meeting, which will be December 2nd? I assume this one we can do December 2nd? The distribute reports, Adrian?
Oh, that wasn't my item.
I
was
put
just
it in.
moving
Yeah,
it.
we can talk about it whenever.
Oh,
It's
sorry,
like
Adrian moved it. Thank you.
yeah. It's just an informal conversation of I'm curious. We're hitting that, and we're working on solutions, and we've been looking at Quarto, and I know a lot of people in this crew and related are big Quarto fans. But just kind of curious to hear what people have been doing to distribute reports, because that can be really complicated as a shortcoming for Jupyter notebooks. Sometimes it can be really hard to distribute your work. And so we're looking at solutions for doing that, and I'd just be curious to hear other people.
Awesome. Okay, so we'll do that on December 2nd. Josh, what about this one? Do you want to do that on December 2nd? You can also think about it. You don't need to decide right now.
Yeah, I could. I'm trying to remember exactly what I was going to cover for that.
Well, I'll
The
put it
computer
on
threw
for
me a
December
curveball.
2nd, and you've
Yeah,
got
put it
2
on.
weeks to figure
Yeah,
that out.
I don't have a schedule conflict for December 2nd, so I can be in the meeting.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
All right. We have 1 more minute. We have a couple of reminders. As a reminder, CHAOSScon EU is January 22nd. Callie's been coming up with some ideas for something around the data science working group, kind of a breakout session there. So I would encourage people, if you can at all, be there. It's the weekend before, or the Thursday before FOSDEM weekend. I also want to remind people that there are some really good dev rooms. So there are a couple that are directly related to data science. There's HPC, Big Data, and Data Science. There's an open research room. There's also a community room, which in the past has also occasionally had some topics, but there are a whole bunch of different dev rooms, and I think most of them, if not all of them, the deadline is December 1st. So you've got a couple of weeks to think about submitting talks, because we're always interested in having people submit talks about the work that they're doing as part of CHAOSS. And then, of course, the scale CFP is also December 1st. So if you have any talks that you want to do there, it's a lovely conference in Pasadena. I would encourage people to have a look at that.
Yep. And we take metrics talks, particularly I'll tell you one track that is really looking if anybody has worked with governments of any kind. The government open data track always has a lot of difficulty finding a lot of good new talks. So if you have worked with government data, please submit.
Awesome. Cool. Thanks, Josh. All right, we are now out of time. So thank you everyone for coming. And for those of you in the US, happy Thanksgiving next week. And we'll see you all again on December 2nd. So thanks, everybody.
Thanks.